Every Saturday morning, Michael helped Ethan with his hair care routine. Today, they sat in the bathroom as sunshine streamed through the window, catching the golden brown waves that now reached just past Ethan's shoulders. "Hold still, buddy," Michael said, gently working coconut oil through the strands. "Almost done." "Dad, remember when I used to scream whenever someone tried to cut my hair?" Ethan asked, looking at his reflection. Michael smiled. "How could I forget? The first time we took you to a barber, 3 people had to hold you down. You were so upset we never tried again for almost a year." For most kids, haircuts were simple. But for Ethan, the buzzing sound of clippers, the feeling of cold metal against his skin, and strangers touching his head had been unbearable. His doctors explained it was common for children with cerebral palsy to have sensory processing challenges. What felt like a gentle touch to others could feel like sandpaper to Ethan. "When did we decide to just let it grow?" Ethan asked, watching as his father carefully tied the hair into a neat ponytail. "When you were 8, Michael answered. "Your mom suggested we try letting you have control over your hair for once. You loved it from day one." It had taken months of occupational therapy for Ethan to learn how to brush his own hair, almost a year before he could tolerate having it washed without crying. But gradually, his hair had become his pride, something he could manage despite his limited hand control. "Ryan at school says boys shouldn't have long hair," Ethan said quietly. Michael finished the ponytail and moved to face his son. "What do you think about that?" Ethan considered for a moment. "I think Ryan doesn't know what it's like to be me. This is the only hair I can handle having." "That's right," Michael nodded, "and it looks great on you. Besides, lots of guys have long hair, like that basketball player you like, and that guitarist from the band on your t-shirt." Later that afternoon, Sarah returned from work and found Ethan in the backyard, reading a book while the breeze gently moved his ponytail. "Your hair looks nice today," she said, kissing the top of his head. "Dad helped me with it," Ethan replied. "Did you know it took us 3 years to get it this long?" Sarah nodded. "I remember every step. It's been a journey, but it was worth it." She ran her hand gently over his head. "This hair represents how brave you are, Ethan. Never forget that." From her window across the street, Patricia Winters watched the Davis family in their backyard. She took out her phone and snapped several pictures of Ethan's long hair, adding them to her growing file. The moving truck pulled up to the curb of 247 Maple Avenue on a bright Saturday morning. Michael Davis couldn't help but smile as he watched his 12-year-old son Ethan's eyes light up at the sight of their new home. For 3 long years, Michael had been searching for the perfect place, somewhere with wide doorways for Ethan's wheelchair, no steps at the entrance, and a neighborhood where his son could make friends easily. "What do you think, buddy?" Michael asked, pushing Ethan's wheelchair up the smooth concrete path leading to their front door. The boy's smile was all the answer he needed. "It's just like in the pictures, Dad. Look at that big tree. Can we hang a swing from it?" The house in Oakwood Estates seemed perfect in every way. The streets were clean and safe. The local school had an excellent program for children with special needs, and there was even a heated pool nearby where Ethan could do his water therapy. After seeing 27 different houses across 3 neighborhoods, Michael knew this was the one as soon as he walked through the door. His wife Sarah arrived an hour later, still wearing her police uniform. She had just finished her shift, one of her first as the city's new police chief. The gold badge on her chest caught the sunlight as she stepped out of her car. "Well, did he love it?" she asked Michael, giving him a quick kiss. "See for yourself." Michael nodded toward Ethan, who was already exploring the backyard in his wheelchair, laughing with excitement. As they unpacked boxes that afternoon, their new neighbors stopped by with welcome gifts, homemade cookies, a houseplant, and friendly smiles. Everyone seemed so nice, though a few mentioned the homeowners association with small frowns. "Just be careful about the rules," whispered Mrs. Gonzalez from next door. Patricia runs the HOA like it's her personal kingdom. Michael nodded politely but wasn't worried. They had read all the rules before buying the house. Sure, some were strict, but nothing they couldn't handle. Besides, what could possibly go wrong in such a friendly place? Across the street, Patricia Winters watched through her living room curtains as the Davis family settled in. She clicked her pen repeatedly against her HOA violation notepad, her eyes narrowing at the wheelchair ramp being installed at their front door. It stuck out 4 inches farther than regulation. She had already started a file labeled Davis Family Violations on her computer. By nightfall, it contained 3 pages of notes. The community pool glittered under the July sun as Michael wheeled Ethan toward the entrance gate. Swimming was the highlight of Ethan's week, the one activity where his body felt weightless and free from the constraints of cerebral palsy. "Dad, look. They put in that special lift we asked for." Ethan pointed excitedly to the new mechanical chair that could safely lower him into the water. "Seems like not everyone in the HOA is difficult." Michael smiled, relieved to see at least one of their accessibility requests had been approved. They found a spot in the shade, and Michael helped Ethan change into his swim shorts. Several neighbors waved hello, and 2 children from Ethan's class came over to ask if he would join their water game later. That's when Patricia Winters appeared, clipboard in hand, wearing a wide-brimmed hat despite standing in the shade. She walked directly toward them, her sandals slapping sharply against the wet concrete. "Excuse me, Mr. Davis," she said, not looking at Ethan. "I need to inform you of a pool regulation violation." Michael sighed. "What is it now, Patricia?" Section 8, Paragraph 3 of the pool rules clearly states that all male swimmers must have appropriate haircuts, no hair below the collar. She pointed at Ethan's ponytail with her pen. "This is a hygiene issue." "That's ridiculous," Michael said, keeping his voice calm for Ethan's sake. "His hair is clean and tied back securely." Patricia's lips thinned to a straight line. "Rules are rules." "Actually," Michael reached into his bag, "we have a medical exemption." He pulled out a folder and handed her a letter. Dr. Matthews documented Ethan's sensory processing issues. The HOA board approved this exemption last month. Patricia scanned the paper, her face growing redder by the second. "This wasn't properly filed. I never saw this." Mrs. Rodriguez, who was sitting nearby with her family, stood up. "Leave them alone, Patricia. The boy just wants to swim." "Yeah," Mr. Jenkins joined in, walking over from the deep end. "My nephew has hair twice that length, and you've never said a word to him." Others began to murmur in agreement. Patricia looked around, suddenly aware that she had an audience. With a huff, she tucked the clipboard under her arm. "I'll need to verify this exemption with the board," she said. "In the meantime, I'll allow it, but this isn't over." As she stalked away, Ethan looked up at his father. "Is she going to make me cut my hair, Dad?" Michael squeezed his son's shoulder. "No, buddy. You're Mom, and I won't let that happen." But as they enjoyed the afternoon in the pool, Michael couldn't help noticing Patricia standing by the fence, taking pictures with her phone and making notes. Something in her expression made his stomach tighten with worry. The first envelope appeared 3 days after the Davis family moved in. It was bright yellow with "No TAC of violation" printed in bold letters across the front. Michael found it taped to their mailbox when he went out to get the morning newspaper. "The wheelchair ramp installed at your property extends 4.2 inches beyond permitted dimensions," the notice read. "Please correct this within 7 days to avoid penalties." Michael sighed and set the paper aside. He would need to call the contractor back, which meant more money and more waiting. But he wanted to be a good neighbor, so he made the call. By the end of the week, 2 more yellow envelopes had appeared. One complained about the flower beds Sarah had planted, non-approved plant species, and another about the medical transport van that brought Ethan home from physical therapy. Commercial vehicles not permitted in driveways. "This is getting ridiculous," Sarah said one evening, tossing the latest notice onto the kitchen table. "I'll go talk to this Patricia woman tomorrow." But the meeting didn't go well. Patricia Winters sat behind a desk in the HOA office, her gray hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her skin. She wore a blue cardigan with a silver pin that read, HOA President, in fancy letters. "Rules exist for a reason, Mrs. Davis," Patricia said, not looking up from her computer. "We can't make exceptions just because your son has special needs. That would be unfair to other residents. But the Americans with Disabilities Act clearly states," Sarah began. "This is private property governed by our covenant," Patricia interrupted. "Everyone signed the same agreement." Over the next month, Michael tried different approaches. He brought cookies to the HOA meeting. He invited board members to meet Ethan. He even offered to pay for landscaping around the ramp to make it blend in better. 3 board members seemed sympathetic, but they always looked to Patricia before speaking, and Patricia always shook her head. "Don't take it personally," whispered Mr. Jenkins from across the street when he saw Michael collecting another yellow envelope. "She drove out the Rodriguez family last year because their autistic son made too much noise. And before that, it was the Wongs because they cooked foods that she said smelled foreign. Why doesn't anyone stand up to her?" Michael asked. Mr. Jenkins lowered his voice even more. "She keeps files on everyone, knows all our secrets. Most folks are scared of what she might do." He glanced nervously at Patricia's house before hurrying back across the street. Sarah Davis was in the middle of a staff meeting when her phone vibrated. Seeing Michael's name, she excused herself and stepped into the hallway. Her husband rarely called during her work hours unless it was an emergency. 30 seconds into the call, her face changed. The other officers, who had known her for years, had never seen that expression before. A mixture of maternal fury and professional determination that made her seem taller somehow. "I need 2 units at 247 Maple Avenue, my home address. Assault on a minor. Suspect still on scene," she instructed her deputy chief. "I'm heading there now. And Tom, the victim is my son." The squad room exploded into action as Sarah grabbed her keys. She drove with lights flashing, but no siren, her mind racing between thoughts of Ethan and the legal procedures she needed to follow. When she pulled up to her house, 2 patrol cars were already there. Officer Rodriguez and Officer Chen had established a perimeter and were taking statements. Patricia Winters sat on the garden wall, arms crossed, looking indignant rather than remorseful. Sarah's first stop was Ethan. Michael had brought him inside, away from curious neighbors and the chaos. She found them in Ethan's bedroom, where Michael was trying to even out what was left of their son's hair. "Oh, baby," Sarah whispered, taking in the choppy, uneven cuts and Ethan's red eyes. "Mom, she said I was breaking the rules." Ethan's voice trembled. "She wouldn't stop, even when I asked her to." Sarah knelt beside his wheelchair. "What she did was wrong, Ethan. Very wrong. And she's going to face consequences for it." After making sure a family friend could stay with Ethan, Sarah returned outside, switching from mother to police chief. She put her personal feelings in a mental box and locked it. This was now about the law. "Mrs. Winters," she said, approaching Patricia with Officer Rodriguez beside her. "I understand you've been read your rights." "This is ridiculous," Patricia huffed. "I was enforcing HOA regulations. Your son's appearance was affecting property values and you used scissors to cut a disabled minor's hair against his will," Sarah interrupted, her voice calm and professional. "That's assault. It's also a violation of his rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act." Patricia's mouth opened in shock. "But I'm the HOA president, and I'm the police chief," Sarah replied evenly. "Officer Rodriguez, please proceed with the arrest." She stepped back, allowing her officer to handle the handcuffs and formal charges. The neighbors watched in stunned silence as Patricia was escorted to the patrol car. As she passed Sarah, Patricia hissed, "You'll regret this. I have friends in the city council." Sarah didn't respond. She simply watched as the car drove away, then returned inside to help her family begin to heal. 2 days after the pool incident, Ethan asked if he could read his book outside. The summer breeze felt nice, and their front yard had a perfect reading spot under a maple tree. Michael helped his son transfer from the wheelchair to the cushioned garden bench they had installed. "I'll be right back with your water bottle," Michael said. "Just need to grab your medication too. 5 minutes, okay?" "I'm fine, Dad." Ethan smiled, already opening his science fiction novel. "I'm 12, not 5. Michael hurried inside, glancing back once to see Ethan happily absorbed in his book. The medication was in the kitchen cabinet. He filled a glass with ice water, added Ethan's pills, and reached for the phone when it rang. It was the contractor about fixing the ramp to meet HOA specifications. "Yes, we still need that done," Michael explained. "How soon can you?" The conversation cut short when he heard Mrs. Rodriguez screaming from outside. "Stop it. What are you doing?" "Michael. Michael." He dropped the phone and ran, his heart hammering against his ribs. The sight that greeted him froze his blood. Patricia Winters stood over Ethan, holding a large pair of scissors in one hand and clutching a fistful of his son's hair in the other. Locks of golden brown hair lay scattered across the grass like fallen leaves. Ethan sat motionless, tears streaming down his face, his hands gripping the bench so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "What have you done?" Michael shouted, rushing to his son. Patricia turned to him calmly. "I'm enforcing the HOA code. Section 12, Paragraph 7. All residents must maintain appropriate appearance standards. Since you refused to comply, I took necessary action." Mrs. Rodriguez stood at the edge of the yard, her phone held up. "I've been recording this whole thing, Michael. I called the police too." Michael wrapped his arms around Ethan, who had started to shake uncontrollably. The boy couldn't speak, couldn't even look up, his breathing coming in short, panicked gasps. "He was fine until you came along," Patricia continued, waving the scissors. "Property values are dropping because of special cases like—" "Put those scissors down now," Michael commanded, his voice deadly quiet. He pulled out his own phone. "Sarah, it's me. Come home immediately." Patricia Winters just attacked Ethan. She cut off his hair. "Yes, with scissors." Mrs. Rodriguez recorded it. "She's already called the police, but yes, please hurry." Patricia's face finally showed a flicker of uncertainty. "The HOA bylaws give me authority to assault a disabled child." Mrs. Rodriguez interrupted. "The only place you're going is jail." Michael didn't hear them arguing. He was focused entirely on Ethan, who had curled into his chest, sobbing with a heartbreak that seemed to echo across the entire neighborhood. The story of what Patricia Winters did to Ethan Davis spread through Oakwood Estates like wildfire. By evening, local news vans lined the street, and by morning, social media was filled with the video Mrs. Rodriguez had recorded. 3 days after the incident, the remaining HOA board members called an emergency meeting at the community center. Every seat was filled, with people standing along the walls and spilling out into the hallway. "We are deeply ashamed of what happened," announced Mr. Jenkins, who had been appointed interim president. "Patricia Winters acted alone, against our values, and certainly without our approval. As of today, she has been permanently removed from the board." The room erupted in applause, but Michael, sitting quietly in the back with Sarah, simply nodded. Words couldn't undo what had happened to their son. "Furthermore," Mr. Jenkins continued, "we propose a complete revision of our HOA bylaws, with input from disability rights experts. The Davis family will have a permanent seat on the committee if they wish." In the weeks that followed, the Davises received hundreds of cards, letters, and small gifts for Ethan. Children from his school started a Grow Your Hair Club, with many boys and girls pledging not to cut their hair for a full year in solidarity. A local salon offered free haircuts to anyone donating their hair to make wigs for children with medical hair loss, naming the campaign Ethan's Locks of Love. Patricia's case moved through the legal system with surprising speed. Faced with clear video evidence, She accepted a plea deal that included 6 months of probation, community service at a disability center, and mandatory education on disability rights. Her lawyer read a public apology, though Sarah noted that Patricia herself never made eye contact with their family in court. The most significant change came in the neighborhood itself. The revised HOA rules became a model for inclusive community governance. Homeowners who had previously stayed silent began speaking up at meetings, sharing their own stories of feeling excluded or unfairly targeted. By Christmas, Ethan's hair had grown back enough for a small ponytail. At the neighborhood holiday party, hosted at the community center that was now fully accessible, several other boys proudly showed off their growing hair too. "How does it feel?" Michael asked his son as they watched neighbors mingling, sharing food and laughter. Ethan considered the question carefully, the way he always did. "It still hurts sometimes, when I remember. But look at all the good things that happened after. Maybe it was worth it." "No," Sarah said firmly, joining them with cups of hot chocolate. "What happened to you was wrong, and never worth it. But I'm proud of how you've helped change things for the better." Ethan smiled as a group of kids waved him over to join their game. As he wheeled toward them, his growing ponytail bouncing slightly, Michael and Sarah watched their son, not defined by what had been taken from him, but by the community that had grown around him, stronger and kinder than before.